Are you thinking of starting a podcast for your business, but you're not sure where to begin? I've hosted a weekly podcast for over 5 years, and I now offer podcast power hours to help you get started with clarity and confidence. In this one-to-one session, we'll cover whatever you need, from tech and format to episode ideas, and you'll also get a free podcast starter kit with my go-to kit, tools, and software. Head to the link in the show notes to book your podcast power hour today.
Welcome to the Bring Your Product Idea to Life podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're getting started selling products or if you'd like to create your own product to sell. I'm Vicky Weinberg, a product creation coach and Amazon expert. Every week, I share friendly, practical advice as well as inspirational stories from small businesses. Let's get started.
Today on the podcast, I'm speaking to Helen Williams. Helen helps people to create magnetic content on Instagram using AI trained to sound like them. Her clients want to grow their businesses on Instagram and need help to get more visibility. So today I invited Helen back onto the podcast. She was actually on an episode with me about a year ago, I believe, talking about how to get more visible online. And I invited her back on to talk about using AI to help with your content creation. So whether that's using AI to help you plan and schedule your content, actually write your captions. And by the way, in case you're worried about this, Helen has some great advice on how you can do all of this and still sound authentic, still sound like you. She's definitely not suggesting that AI takes the place of people or anything like that. Helen is really passionate about you using AI to help you be more visible online, sell more of your products in a way that feels authentic to you, but just is a massive time saver. So Helen has so much to share. She has lots and lots of advice and tips of ways we can use AI in our personal as well as our professional lives. She taught me a lot of things I had no idea about, things AI can do. Definitely going to look into those. And this is all in all a really exciting and interesting episode. So I would love now to reintroduce you to Helen. So hi Helen, thank you for joining me on the podcast again.
Hi Vicky, it's so nice to be back for a second time. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. So for anyone who hasn't listened to your original episode, which we will link to in the show notes, by the way, can you please give a reintroduction to yourself, your business, and what you do?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Helen Williams. My business is creatively called Hey Helen Williams. And I work on Instagram to help people to get more visibility. So I'm a social media strategist. So I'm not a social media manager, so I don't run people's accounts for them, but I coach and train and educate people to get more visibility. So Instagram has changed so much over the years. So I really focus on what's working now and the latest. So not actually trends as such, but what's working using AI, digital products to grow your account. So yes, that is what I help people with.
That's amazing, thank you. And I've invited you back today to talk about AI specifically, because as we know, AI is absolutely everywhere. And I would love your take on how product businesses can actually use it to support their visibility and what they're doing on social media. So before we go into in detail, what's your thoughts on sort of top line? How can product businesses use it to support what they're doing already?
So I think the thing with AI is it's still relatively new. It's still, people. I mean, I don't know how long it's been around. I remember my son first told me about ChatGPT, and I don't know. When you hear these things, you think it's a bit rubbish, or it's not going to take off, or all these kind of concerns you have. And it very quickly it's become like quite mainstream, ChatGPT. But there are still people who feel it's going to if you're promoting things on Instagram or social media, there's still a lot of concern that you're losing your authenticity or your voice, and it's obviously a robot kind of overtaking you. But really, in terms of visibility and how we use it, it's down to exactly that, like how you use it. So it's learning how you can use it to sound like you. So there's like anything, there's a lot of work and sort of training that needs to go into it to set it up to make it sound like you, so that it's almost like taking you but mixing with the whole. I mean, on a base level, sort of what ChatGPT does is scans the internet for everything written about a particular subject, whatever you're searching for. So it's kind of taking what's your style and what's in your brain and adding a whole load of different dimensions to it, and it's a massive time saver. So for promoting products and services, it's incredible because it can just give you like so many ideas and things that you just, maybe you haven't got the time to think about, or you just haven't, you're not in the right headspace. You've got like a million things going on, like most entrepreneurs have. So it's so good at helping people, not be overwhelmed, managing their time and being able to actually do more.
That's brilliant, thank you. And I mean, I've heard a lot of criticism, I'm sure you've heard this as well, from people saying, oh, I can tell when a post, in fact, I read one on LinkedIn this morning, who's annoyed about all the posts that are definitely written by AI, it's so easy to spot the AI posts. So are you saying, Helen, that if we use ChatGPT correctly and we train it to learn who we are, how we speak, what we're trying to get across, we can actually avoid that?
Yeah, absolutely. That, I mean, there's quite a lot of posts like that. So I think it was one of the big clothing brands. There was a big thing recently because somebody had noted it looked like their latest campaign was written by ChatGPT because it had some of the telltale signs, and those are the what's called an M dash, which is like a dash, like a double one. So that always sticks out like a sore thumb, that ChatGPT throws that in there. So whenever you see that, and I've had, because I've done posts about that, like how to spot something that's being written by ChatGPT, and you always get these like English literature people who will come on and say, that's not fair, that's actually really grammatically correct, that you should use that M dash like that. But the point is, we don't day to day, most people don't, and that ChatGPT does. So it does stand out as, somebody hasn't put any effort into what they're writing and it's not coming from them. And with social media, it is all about the person. So if you're just chucking stuff into ChatGPT and taking exactly what it gives you back and using that, then yeah, it's hard to say you're being authentic. But it's all about training it and getting it to sound like you, and that's just done by a lot of back and forth and correcting it. So I will just say to it, don't use the M dash, I just want a comma instead, but then maybe some people do use a single dash. So tell it that, it's a two-way thing, and it will learn like very, very quickly once you start to give it instructions.
That's good to know. And I guess also for anyone who's got this far, but they're still feeling a bit like, oh, it's still not authentic, it's not something I want to do. You can also use ChatGPT for ideas, can't you? So it doesn't have to necessarily write every single blog or social media post. You could just use it to give you ideas of things you could post, for example.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's fantastic for that. That's where that sort of creativity things, we don't always, even the most creative of person doesn't always feel, you don't always feel on your A game, but that doesn't mean you don't want to sort of show up that day, or, if you're not feeling 100%. So it's amazing for idea generation. And as I say, you don't have to take exactly what it gives you as output, but it will just, one idea will spark another one. So it's really good for that. But it does come down to the prompts, what you put into it. That's kind of everything really, because that's the instruction that you're feeding it. So those prompts have to be like multi-dimensional. It's if you're just going to say to ChatGPT, write me a post about selling my latest product, which is XYZ, it's going to struggle. It's going to just come, well, it'll either ask you some questions, which is great because that will sort of dig deeper, but if you just take its output and use that, it's going to be very one-dimensional, and that's when you won't get that connection with your ideal clients, because they won't be able to really feel it. It's in social media, we need to really move away from looking like an advert, because it's not advertorial. It's advertorial. That's not the right word, is it?
That sounds like a word.
Does it? But it's more about that connection in social media, and that's what people who like social media and scroll through, and the people we are sort of ideal clients that we hope to attract, they are looking for that connection. They're looking for the person, like the backstory to something, the behind the scenes. That's where social media is now. It's not the polished end product. It's not someone who's hired a professional studio and a script and things like that. That just doesn't work anymore. It's moved on. It needs to be much more real and raw. And you can get all those ideas from ChatGPT, which is just incredible. You can say, I want to be more honest. You can say, like, I want this to be more raw, like I'm talking to an old friend. It can do things like that. So it's just about learning. Like, don't write it off too quickly as just being a robot.
That's brilliant, thank you. And I am going to delve in a moment, a bit more into sort of how we feed ChatGPT to sound a bit more like us. But for those of us who aren't very tech savvy, what are some really easy ways we can start using AI, whether it's ChatGPT or something else, to help with our social media?
Yeah, so I mean, I always talk about ChatGPT just because that's the one that I use, and I've also got the paid version, which is about £20 a month, just because it does more, and you don't get that annoying thing where it blocks your. I think you can only do a certain number of searches a day. So I've got the paid version, so I do have extra things, but obviously, yes, there are lots of different AI tools around now. So yeah, I keep saying ChatGPT, but obviously, for the listeners, there are lots of different ones. And I know somebody is using Gemini AI and really loves it. And there's Deep, what's the one that Deep something? Can't remember what that was called. But yeah, there's lots of different versions around. But with, ChatGPT, what was the question, Vicky? Just so I've gone off on a tangent. Remind me again.
Oh, no problem at all. I just want to say, what are some easy ways to get started? So if someone's thinking, okay, I'm not very tech savvy, don't really know what AI is, how to use it, how could we get off? How can we just start? Because often starting is the hardest thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think it's like just playing around with it. So, and you don't have to start using it for work, but I know loads of people who use it, to manage their diary better, as in, maybe you've got like 3 different kids who are doing lots of different things, and it's hard to keep on top of, and just household chores, whereas I suppose the thing to do is think, what would you normally Google? So, we get so used to now, don't we, Googling everything. If you don't know the answer to a question your child is asking you or something, you Google it. It's just what we do. And it's, I think, a good place to start is by replacing Google with ChatGPT. So if you get very used to asking ChatGPT those questions, because it gives you such a fuller answer, and you can, you're not just putting a search term in and getting an answer from one page. You're getting this like huge array of answers, but not that you have to sit and trawl through them all. Actually like pulls them all together into a summary for you. So it's such a deeper response that you get. And I think if you start to use it, and you'd get used to it from just doing it for your for your personal life or booking a holiday. I mean, I haven't done that, but people say it can act as a travel agent. So it's incredible for like sweeping the internet and finding the best time, prices, things like that. There's really not any sort of limits on it. So I would say, just as a good way, like before you delve into it for work, if that seems a bit scary and you're not really sure sort of what output you're going to get, or if you'll go down a rabbit hole with it, and just start using it for your personal life, things that you maybe struggle with if you're not very good with timekeeping. You can ask it to suggest a schedule for you and tell it your daily tasks, things that are taking you longer than you want them to, something like that. And I think you'd be surprised with, what it comes out with, because it's really creative, things that you just wouldn't have thought of as responses.
That's brilliant, thank you. And I have to say, I've seen examples of people using it for all types of things.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I follow quite a lot of accounts. So I use Threads. Well, Instagram's got Threads, which is a bit like Twitter, X, and I don't use it an awful lot for posting, but I do find it good for ideas, and just because it's more work, it's no pictures, it's just words on there. So you do get a lot of ideas from there, and there's quite a lot of ChatGPT accounts on there that will give like really good prompts, but not not the prompts that I would use, but prompts for things that I haven't even thought of. Like that toy action figure thing that went around. That was like a big craze that went around, recently. It was like creating a version of yourself, like a Barbie doll in a packet. I saw that.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that first on Threads, and that like went huge. People just come up with these kind of these ideas, because it can, of course, create pictures now as well. It's evolving like so fast. So what it used to do, if you said create a version of me, I don't know, on a beach or whatever, it would look like nothing like you. Would have like a very distorted face. It used to be very, very basic. And now, if you tell it your tool with blonde hair, it's, and whatever other features, it's very, very clever now with the images. That's definitely come on like very, very quickly.
Well, that's brilliant. And speaking of images, this is an aside. I hadn't planned to ask you this question, but since we are, how good is it at helping create images, whether that's actually the image creation or coming up with ideas? Because that's enough. Obviously, if we're talking about Instagram, there's the visual, there's the tech side, and then there's the visual side. So how good is ChatGPT at that side of things?
I think it's amazing. Yeah, I think that side of it has grown like really, really quickly. So I saw a prompt the other day that you put in. It's quite a long prompt, but it's basically saying from all of the questions that I've asked you, like ChatGPT, from all, everything I've put in, give me a picture of what, or like a photo of what you think I look like, and it's incredible. So I got a pretty accurate photo of me out. It can actually look at what you've asked it and kind of work out sort of what kind of person you are, and and create like a photo like picture, which is amazing. So it's not just like images as in sort of cartoons or whatever. It can actually create things that look not far off real.
That's amazing. I had no, I'm going to do that as soon as we're off this call. It's the first thing I'm going to go and do. Really curious about that now. So I've seen that inside ChatGPT, and I think we'll stick with talking about that one for now. And as you say, I know there are lots out there, but I think it probably makes sense to just talk about the one that you use and that you're familiar with, and the one I think a lot of people will have heard of. So I know that ChatGPT is an AI tool, but within ChatGPT, I've noticed there are other GPTs within it, if that makes sense.
Yes, there are. So yeah, there's a little tab, well, a sort of section that says Explore GPTs. And if you click on that, it's over on the left-hand side, it brings up a whole host of different GPTs. So I only found this maybe a couple of months ago, something like that. And I don't know if it was new then or if it's one of those things, sometimes you don't know how long something's been there. But yeah, there's a whole host of other GPTs. So like Canva has its own one, and we all know and love Canva. So that's amazing that you can, so like if you want to create a digital product or something like that, you can, like, it combines the two. So you don't have to use ChatGPT, then open up Canva. You can use the two together. So it's merged those together really well. It's got specific GPTs on there for like just about anything really, like because people can create their own. So I've created my own one because I help people writing content for social media. So I just thought, people are asking me a lot, like like how can I make this hook better, or which sort of caption, how long should a caption be, or things like that. And I thought, if I can just put all of my knowledge around that subject into a GPT, then they can go into that GPT and it will replicate my thought process really. So that is what I've done. So I've got my own GPT, and anyone, if you're teaching people a kind of similar thing that's repeatable, you could make your own GPT. It's free to do. You just have to have the paid version of ChatGPT. But it's free to set them up, and then you can just sell it or give it to your clients. It's really good. It's really, really good, because then you're not, people aren't just starting from a fresh version of ChatGPT every time. They're starting from your, like, whatever you've trained it as, the sort of background knowledge you've given it.
That's amazing, thank you. And I was going to ask if you had any AI tools or platforms that work for when we're talking about social media. So if you can please provide the link for your GPT, we could put that in the show notes, because that sounds like a brilliant resource.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did, before I created mine, one of my freebies that I was giving out to people were like different types of GPTs that I sort of recommended that I found, because there's all sorts. There's like hook generators. There's I can't remember the other ones, but I just had a look through, and there were just some that sort of like stood out that would be really helpful for social media. So there's like loads on there. But yeah, mine, because I've kind of studied Instagram, and I really understand it and know what works, I just put all of my learnings really into my GPT. So it's really good, if there's a particular area you're struggling with, like writing a hook, if you're sort of like, hooks are the most important thing with social media. Your reel has to have a strong hook. It's that's a kind of make it or break it in the first 3 seconds. That's kind of, the hook is everything. So if you really struggle with hooks, or you're not quite sure what a good hook looks like, then my GPT or any of the others on there, it's really good to find like a specialist that can just help you with those.
Definitely. And when we talk about hooks, just so we're really clear for everyone, are we talking about, so if it's a reel, for example, the piece of text that would be on the reel that's visible to everyone, that encourages them to either keep watching or click through or not?
Yeah, that's it, exactly. It's the on-screen text, and then the longer form text underneath is referred to as a caption.
Perfect. Thank you. So you've talked a little bit about training a GPT, and we also spoke a bit about the beginning about how we want to make sure that any content we use ChatGPT to help us with sounds authentic. How can we do this? What are some of the ways we can train ChatGPT to start talking like us? And I know it won't be an exact match, but I'm assuming that when you start using ChatGPT, it's very generic. It sounds the same for everyone. How can
Yeah.
we personalize it?
So there's some settings which you can go to. So to use ChatGPT, you have to sign up for it. You have to, even the free version, you can't just go on. You have to log into it. So that's how it works. It it's got a memory, and it will remember your conversations because you've logged in. So over on, I think it's like in the right hand side. It's under the settings. There's what are they called? Custom instructions. So custom instructions, there's about 3 different fields there, and it prompts you. It says who do you help? What do you do? Give me some more guidelines. So there's about 3 different spaces that you can actually put. So I would say, like, I work with female entrepreneurs. I help people to make their content magnetic. I'm from the UK, because that's another important thing. You don't want if you're in the UK, you don't want all the Z spellings in your content. Whereas, like prioritize with a Z, an English person wouldn't spell it that way. We use the S. So there's a whole host of things, or even just terminology. Like if you're asking it to write quite conversationally for you, it might say things like, "Hello, my lovelies," or "Hello, hun," or things like that you just wouldn't use, your terminology. So you can say to it, like, don't use hun, or don't use whatever, just the things you would and wouldn't say, because then that will help. So once you've put that information in, that stays there, and then every time you ask it a question, it will take that information and the question that you're asking it, and then you can go back, like the M dash, like using the double dash thing. If you put that in your custom instructions, that should get rid of it as well. But if it doesn't, then you can, if you tell it a couple of times, it will stop doing things. Like the bullets, it uses like unnecessary indentations on its bullets. So if you want to cut and paste a load of stuff out, I always find the indentations are sort of too far in. So you can just tell it not to do that, and you can tell it not to use too many emojis, or no emojis, or more emojis, or just anything. You just need to you just need to keep sort of working back and forth with it, really. But those custom instructions are the place to go. That's just, if you put as much as you can in there about what your business is, who you want to attract, where you are, who you are, it just that's the bit that you will see a big difference in terms of the output that it gives you, because it will look at those custom instructions every time it gives you output.
Perfect, thank you. And I assume for a product business, you can also tell it about your products, your range. If you've got a specific mission or something that makes your brand different, you can feed all of that into it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best place for it. Yeah, and you can, it doesn't mean it's going to lift everything you've put it into the output, but it will just cleverly pick out the bits. If you were saying, give me 10 ideas for a campaign or an email campaign for this particular product, you wouldn't have to say the products I'm referring to are the 10 different styles of t-shirts, or whatever it was. It would know what your products are already. So it saves you a lot of time, again, by putting in the extra effort into those custom instructions. Then it will just know, and it will make the whole thing quicker. It will make when you're putting a prompt in, you don't have to ask it so much, because it's already got that sort of base information there.
That makes sense. And can it read websites? So I'm just thinking, for example, for a product business, could you say to it, and maybe not in the custom instructions, but could you say to it, this is my website, and would it be able to take more from your website about what you sell, for example?
Yeah, it can now. So that's a fairly recent change, actually. It can. So you can even put like somebody's Instagram address in. So they're, www.instagram.com. I don't know if it's forward or backwards slash, I always get confused between the two, but slash of some sort, and then the name. And you can say, using this account for inspiration, please give me, 10 content ideas. So rather than sort of scrolling through Instagram and looking for like viral ideas or, hooks that work, you can take some inspiration, and it won't copy that account, but it will just look at the most, like the best performing on there and give you sort of your own versions on it for your niche and your product. So it's very good for that. That's a good question actually about the websites, because that's something it didn't used to do, but it can do that. It can can consume like entire PDF documents now as well, and summarize it or pick out the the top 10 themes of a document. It can very, very quickly take a huge amount of data and give you a summary. It's amazing.
Well, that's brilliant. Wow. I had no idea it could do all of this. So presumably you could feed your own website in if you were a product business and you were struggling, let's say, with what to post, because that's something I hear a lot. I'm sure you hear a lot as well, is what on earth do I well, you could presumably feed your website in and say, using my website for inspiration, come up with some ideas of things I could talk about, because I'm sure we all have our own stories and things that make us different or make our products unique. But it's really hard to think of those yourself in the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, it kind of works both ways. If you find that maybe you've got like a blog on your website that you really like writing, and that's kind of your thing that you're comfortable with, but then you can't really think how to do short form content on Instagram, which is completely different, isn't it? If you're used to writing like loads and loads and you enjoy that, and then you look at Instagram and everyone's doing like 4-second videos, that's like probably quite terrifying. Like, how do I get my message across in sort of 4 or 5 seconds? But that's when you can use it. So you could say, look at my website, give it the address, the blog, give me like 10 ideas of short form content that I could use for reels. Like it knows what a caption is, it knows what a hook is. You don't have to explain anything to it. It knows all the terminology. So so that's a massive shortcut, being able to put a website address in there.
Yeah, that was really good, and I had no idea we could do that. Wow, I think that would be really helpful.
I don't know if it's just on the paid version. I don't think it is. I think everybody can do it now, because there are some differences between the paid version and the free version. But I'm pretty sure that like anyone can do that now. So don't take it 100% for certain, but certainly have a try. I'm pretty sure that it can.
Perfect, thank you. So can AI also help us with things like our content strategy and planning out our social media, or is it just for writing captions and other content?
Yeah, no, it's great for strategy and planning. It's really good. So I mean, there's different ways of doing it. So some people do like to sort of plan their content in advance, and it's really good for doing that in advance. You can take like, I don't know, half a day or something out of your week and plan your content for the week and schedule it all. I'm more of a spur of the moment kind of. I just get ideas constantly for my content, but still I use ChatGPT for all of my content. But you wouldn't know it, because it's so used to me now, and I've trained it so well that it's just like I don't know, like it's kind of like, it's you on your best day, isn't it, really? If you get it right, it's if you're feeling really on it, and really exactly what you want to post, and which posts work, and which like a reel did really well, so that kind of style works. Like, for example, so I've had a few reels that have gone viral. So I know when I look at that reel that style does really well, that kind of video does really well, that caption does well. I know that it was a good, package, like everything just kind of worked together. So I can put that into ChatGPT and say, like, give me some more ideas for another post that's going to like tick all the boxes that this one did, for example. And it will, it will give you, do exactly that, give you lots of ideas that are similar, and you won't look at them and use them all, because there'll be some things that resonate and some that don't. But when you find the ones that do, you can then ask it to expand on those for you. You can easily sit and plan out your content that way. I mean, that is a more efficient use of time than sort of doing it on the fly every day, really. If you get into a habit of kind of using it to plan out your content, then that's a really good way of doing it. So yeah, it's great for that, because it can do all of that up front.
Well, that I think that will definitely, one, save time, but also save that thing of, I think for a lot of us, content planning can be quite daunting, sitting down with a blank piece of paper and thinking, right, what am I going to post about next week?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, you don't ever have to sit down with a blank piece of paper anymore, because you can just start talking to ChatGPT and have that, you can even say, I've got no idea what to post today, and it will say, I don't know what it would say actually. What would it say? It will ask you a series of questions. It's quite good. If you're quite vague with it, it will come back and ask you questions. And that's really good as well, because sometimes you do need that's kind of like why it's good to work with a coach or in a group, because there are other people like asking you questions, whereas you can use ChatGPT for that, to hold you accountable, to prod a little bit deeper. Because if you're just working on your own and you haven't got a coach or a group that you're part of, then you are just a person sitting in a room or a coffee shop, running your business, and it can be quite isolating. So it's really good in that situation, because you can say, like, act as a coach, act as a business strategist for me, and it will adopt that role. So that's a really good way to do it. I mean, that's really how you should use ChatGPT. You should assign it a role at the beginning of each time you use it. So act as a social media manager for me, act as a legal advisor for, it can write contracts and things like that. It can do all sorts, but assigning it a role is a really good way to start the conversation.
That's really useful. Thank you. You're giving so many ideas of ways that it can be used. I'm not writing these down. I'll have to go back and listen to the recording and note these all down, because there's definitely lots of things I want to try.
Yeah.
I had no idea that it would ask you questions back, and I hadn't considered using it in that way. So that's really useful.
Yeah, and you can even ask it to ask you questions. You could say, I want to promote like my latest product. Ask me 10 questions that you need to know to give me a really good output, so that I can know what to post about, or I can know what to write on my website. Because that by asking it to ask you questions, that prompt is really powerful, because it's asking things that you hadn't even thought of. It's kind of, because it's quite hard, isn't it? Sometimes, like you said, it's that blank piece of paper thing. It's quite hard to know where to start. So if you're actually asking it to ask you questions, it will come up with like lots of really insightful questions to give you the answer. So that's a really good one to use it for as well.
That's really useful. And actually, I said I didn't know it could ask questions. I mentioned this before we started recording, and I will share it here. I actually did ask ChatGPT to suggest some questions for this interview based on the list of questions that I'd already prepared.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm not going to say which are mine and which are ChatGPT's, but I think some of the questions it suggested, some weren't relevant, and I haven't used those, but some I think were very insightful.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? It is just, it gives another sort of layer to, because we've all got sort of certain knowledge on subjects, haven't we? But it will not only give you sort of extra knowledge, but it will give you, because of how it gathers its data and information, it's other people's opinions, and it's just such a sort of rounded view of things. You get all of those opinions but kind of rolled into one. And the thing I find amazing is like the speed of it. If you ask it to summarize a large document, there's no kind of waiting. The only thing I think takes a while is images. If you're asking it to, like that Barbie doll thing, create me as a Barbie doll in a box, and, with a PVC screen over the front or whatever, the generating an image does take time, which is understandable. I mean, I have no idea how that works, but yeah, the actual like written stuff comes back in like, I don't know, milliseconds. It's incredible.
It's amazing.
Mm.
But this leads me on to, and this actually, I'll be honest, this actually was an AI question, but I think it's a good one, and I think it's interesting AI is asking me this. What kind of things do you think are better handled by AI, and what do you think should still be done by an actual person?
Oh, so I mean, I think definitely we always need to, like take what you're getting and run a human eye over it, for example. So yeah, I would say never take its first answer. So definitely the human touch is needed. It's needed for that side of things. But I mean, in terms of like, yeah, ideas generation, you could sit there it's like the brainstorming, isn't it? In people would, in meetings in corporate life, it would be brainstorming something. you would be literally sitting in a room with a group of people coming up with ideas, and it would, I've been in that position myself where you're just sitting there thinking, oh God, come on brain, give me some ideas. And that's really hard to do. Whereas if you've got that starting point from AI, you don't have to start from scratch. So I would say things like brainstorming, I think that's really good for AI to kick off a discussion, but then then that human interaction is needed to feed into the how does that work in the real world? Like, what emotions are involved? I suppose it's that emotional side, isn't it, which is perhaps not done so well by AI, because it can't be at the moment. It can learn, and maybe there will be a time when it's completely there. I mean, you can ask ChatGPT to sort of act as a psychologist and things, but it's all very sort of theory based, isn't it? Whereas I think that sort of personal touch has to still be done by a person, and to put a real personal spin on something needs to be a person. So it's the personality side of things, isn't it, that it can't do, or that it's like important for you to do yourself.
I think so, and the lived experiences as well. So, for example, I sometimes use ChatGPT to help me for my podcast episodes, my solo podcast episodes, to kind of help me bullet point out what I might cover, some sort of structure. But I always flesh it out myself, because I like to use examples from things that I've done or examples from my clients. And of course, it's not me and it's not in my brain, so it wouldn't know any of that.
Yeah.
I find it great for structure, but sort of filling in the details is something that I think that we can't be replaced.
Yeah, of course, that's right. But I guess over time, the more you feed into it and the more people get used to using it, it will sort of keep those memories, won't it? And it will, there's some device which is completely terrifying. I read about it a while ago, and I think these are only available in the States at the moment. And it had actually sold out when I looked at it. It was like a watch that you wear, and it records constantly. So at the end of the day, before you go to bed, this is terrifying. This is like, that Black Mirror kind of thing, isn't it?
I was thinking exactly that.
You can say to it, like, give me a summary of my day, and it would say, oh, remember you told Vicky you'd send her that PDF, and remember you promised your best friend to take her out for coffee soon. It would do that for you. And is that a good thing? I don't know. I mean, it's very scary from a data point of view, because who on earth is going to get recording of like literally every phone call you've made, everything? It's listening all day. But this is actually for sale in countries, not here yet, but I guess that will come. If it started somewhere, it will come to us, won't it? Probably very.
I find that terrifying. Also, from a data protection perspective as well, is that if we're obviously recording this podcast interview, that I'm recording the interview, I've told you that I'm recording it, and you've given your permission for me to record this and then for me to share it.
Yeah.
But with devices like that, and I know we're getting completely off track, but that's terrifying, because I could be, let's say, recording a conversation with somebody that we're having in confidence, and I haven't asked their permission to record that, and how do I then use it? I just think, gosh, I don't want one of those. I'm putting it out here now, not for me.
I know it is crazy. It's but that's the speed that AI is running at, isn't it? I think like we're using it for content and ideas generation and things like that, but that's come on very quickly, like maybe in the last year or something, hasn't it? If you think in another year, is it going to be very normal that we just will have our whole I used to wear a watch. I don't wear it anymore, but like a sleep tracker watch, and that will tell you in the morning like what your quality of sleep has been like and things like that. So I guess that there's no privacy or anything around in that, because it's just yours, but there does come a point, doesn't there, where your whole day, like 24 hours, is being analyzed and mapped, and the data from it, and then conclusions being drawn from it as well. So AI is definitely scary, but there's like no stopping it, is there? It's definitely the future, and that's why I do think it's important to keep up with these things rather than be resistant, because it's like when I'm old enough to remember life before mobile phones, and when they first came out, people saying, I've never have a mobile phone, I don't want someone being able to get hold of me wherever I am, like even my sister, and of course everyone's got them, people's grandparents have them, sort of, even the older generations everyone has, like most people have a smartphone now. And it wasn't that long ago when people were sort of terrified of that, because they didn't think they'd be able to get any peace and quiet because people could contact them anywhere. But now, of course, we want to be available, don't we, for some weird reason, and we're kind of, most people day to day are quite happy to be contactable 24/7, and that's really happened in a very short amount of time. So I think I think we just kind of need to stay open to it and just, keep up with the speed that it's moving, because it's a terrifying thought to kind of get left behind with technology, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think also there's something about being aware of it as well, and be aware of what it's doing. Like, I remember this, I think this is AI or some sort of automation. The first time I realized that ads would follow me around the internet. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, I'd go to a website, and then wherever I went after that, whether it was Facebook or wherever it was, I would see an ad for products that I'd been looking at somewhere else, like in
Yeah.
another context. And it took me a while to realize that was happening. And I don't mean like in the last 6 months. I mean, we were talking quite a while ago, but
Yeah.
sort of just realizing that was happening and the ways we're being marketed to was useful to know, I think,
Yeah.
as a
Absolutely.
consumer.
Yeah, I think it's important we do understand that. And like, if these watches do become commonplace, you'd have to really change the way you communicate with people, wouldn't you? You'd have to give your consent at the beginning of a conversation with your friend, maybe. It's just, but if without that awareness that things like that are out there, then you just wouldn't know. And then suddenly I think you'd wake up, if you were sort of like, no, I don't want to know anything about AI, it's all rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And then one day it would hit you, wouldn't it? And there'd be so much to learn. I kind of think it's good to just keep up with how people are using it and what the capabilities are.
You're right, because it's happening, whether any of us like it or not, it's coming for us.
It is. It exactly is. There's just no, I mean, you don't have to use it and things, but like you said, it's good to know what other people are using and how they're using it. And, I think that the purpose is really, it can help you if you use it in the right way. It can, we're all very, very busy. Life's not getting quieter or, less busy, is it? It's kind of like there's more and more for us to sort of keep up with, and, lives are busy. So when you find a tool that can actually alleviate that and help you and support you, then like, even you, it's kind of like sounds as if it's all sort of like bad, or to manage kind of work. But on a personal level, you can ask it to create a meditation for you, a nighttime meditation personalized just to you. You could say, I tend to worry about XYZ. Could you create a meditation for me to listen to? It will do that as well. So there's just all sorts of things you can use it for.
And what about, if anyone's listening now and they're still feeling a bit nervous about using AI, or maybe they even feel like it's cheating to use it to help with content, for example. Let's come back to content. What would you say to someone who's still sort of on the fence about it?
Yeah, I think there is still stigma about it. And I kind of say it's like Botox. It's like everybody has it, but nobody wants to talk about it or admit it. But even like cosmetic surgery is becoming more easily like talked about now. Whereas to start with, it was such a shameful thing for a woman to go and have a little bit of Botox or whatever. But it's more commonplace now. Whereas ChatGPT, it was a bit like, oh God, don't use ChatGPT for your, people are using it for their content, as if there was a real shame about it. But it's making people's lives easier. And I think it's just time to embrace it. And, obviously, like I said, don't, if you cut and paste something with loads of the dashes all over the place and it just looks very robotic and, like everybody else's. But if you really train it to sound like you, with your ideas, with your terminology, and you're happy with it, you've sense checked it and read it over and you're happy that it's good, it's like sounds like something you would say, but a better version, then that's a really good place to go with it. If you're just saying, write me 10 pieces of content and then auto scheduling them and not really even reading them, that's quite a lazy way. I would kind of think that sort of content probably wouldn't land with your ideal clients, because I think people can see through it, and as I said, with Instagram and other social media, it is social. It's about connection. It's about people buying into something about you, whether that's, I don't really talk to camera much on my reels, but, people, there's something about me and my words and my energy that people like, and we see, there's loads of different coaches, there's loads of different everybody, but you gravitate towards, certain people for certain reasons. And the more you sort of show yourself through your social media, that comes across. And if you're just using ChatGPT and making it very sort of static and very samey, then you're losing that sort of that edge really of showing more of yourself.
That makes sense. So we can definitely use ChatGPT and have a personal touch as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's just using them in combination together, but making sure it has that, that sense check at the end, that it does actually sound like something you would say to somebody.
That makes sense. And what's one small step someone could take today to start using AI for their content in a way that feels helpful? So what's one thing somebody could go and try?
I would say to ask ChatGPT to come up with like 10 ideas for an Instagram, or LinkedIn, or whichever social media platform you use. Come up with 10 ideas that will really connect with my audience or my ideal client on a deeper level. And and ask it that question, please ask me questions if you're not sure who my ideal client is. Make sure that bit is cleared up first. But I would ask it, to, like, I always use the word deep, so I always say, like, please go deeper on this, please. Please think of my ideal client and their struggles, things like that, so that you are getting a layer underneath, because that's what you need to do with ChatGPT. Really, you need to go deeper all the time, and you need to just tell it that, else it will just give you a surface level response. So I would say just start to play around with it and ask it those questions, what's my ideal client struggling with, and how can my product help them? How can you position me as the expert? Questions like that. Just start to have that dialogue. Maybe not specifically for creating content, but just to open the dialogue. And then that conversation with ChatGPT will give you ideas, and then maybe you can ask it to refine it into content after that. But just start to have a conversation. I mean, you can voice record into it, so it can feel like a conversation, and it can speak back to you. There's one of the buttons is a voice that comes out, so you can start to just get used to talking to it, I think, so it gets used to you and the type of questions you're asking.
That's really helpful. And I didn't know it could talk back to you. I've actually just started recently talking to it, because I feel like when you're talking, it's more for me, I feel like my own voice is more authentic when I'm talking than when I'm writing. So I've taken to talking to it because I feel like it's getting a better sense of me, because it's more the words I would use, perhaps. I had no idea it could talk back to me.
Yes, it can. It's one of the buttons where you can, there's a thumbs up and a thumbs down. That's always good to tell it if it's a good response as well. That's part of the training that you should do. Once it gives you a response, give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. And then there's a copy button there where you can copy it and put it across into your notes and refine it. And there's also it's like a loudspeaker picture, I think, which is the talking out loud response, which is really nice, because I think you can choose a male or a female voice. I think you can choose a voice. And it does make you feel like it's more of a two-way thing, which is good.
Well, thank you. That's really useful to know. Honestly, I'm learning so much. So thank you so much for your time and for everything you've shared, because this has been incredible. I think a lot of us might need to listen to this more than once to kind of pick up all the different things we can try. So I have one final question before we finish, if that's okay, Helen, and that's, what would be your number one piece of advice if we're going to look at using AI to support our content?
I would say, for me at the moment, I think it's really important that the visuals are still you. So if you're showing yourself, if you're showing a product, then show the actual product, because it's really good for giving, you could take a photo of your product, but you could have AI do the background for it, so you don't need it like a professional studio photo. It's very good for images like that. But I think with visuals, it's really important to have your actual product or your actual self, because AI is doing people now as well. A lot of people are using AI versions of themselves for their content, and I think that's a real turn off for your ideal client, because I still think visual, Instagram is all about the visuals. If you want words, you'd go to I don't know, anywhere else, really, LinkedIn or wherever, but Instagram is still for people that are usually creative. They like the visuals and the aesthetic side of it. So I would say, don't let AI take over your visual side of your feed, but definitely for the captions and for the hooks, it's really, really good. But make sure you've properly read it, and properly read it out loud and think, is this, is there a does this appeal to my ideal client? Is it solving a problem for them or giving them some value? What's in it for the client? And is it a way that I would talk to my friend, in in a sort of friendly, informative tone as well, because that's very good for building connections.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed that chat. They were great questions, thanks to you and ChatGPT in combination.
Thank you. I think using it in partnership is the best way to use it. For me, I'm finding.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right.
Well, thank you so much, Helen. And we will link to everything we've mentioned in the show notes. And thank you again for your time.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Vicky.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. Do remember that you can get the full back catalogue and lots of free resources on my website, vickyweinberg.com. Please do remember to rate and review this episode if you've enjoyed it, and also share it with a friend who you think might find it useful. Thank you again, and see you next week. This month's podcast episodes are proudly sponsored by my own book, Bring Your Product Idea to Life. Have you ever had a great idea for a product? Or does creating a product to sell appeal to you? Where do you begin? How do you come up with a product idea? And if you have an idea, how do you know if it's even viable? In Bring Your Product Idea to Life, I take you through the process of creating your product step by step. From developing your product idea to finding suppliers and launching your product, we cover it all. The book includes advice on how to price your product, where to sell it, and how to find out if anyone will actually buy it. Designed to help you make real progress, Bring Your Product Idea to Life is both practical and motivational. Every chapter includes clear action steps so you know exactly what to do and when. This isn't just a book for reading, this is a book for doing. Bring Your Product Idea to Life is available via Amazon, on my website, and linked in the show notes for this episode.